What's going on, y'all, man? We're doing that prediction here, coming at you. Hi, Venomal and NidgeDFX. This is going down, y'all. In about 2 weeks, Mob versus Tatsumaki. I am taking Team Mob. I'm actually very new to the Mob series. I actually am fully caught up with the One Punch Man. I just started binge watching Mob. It's only 25 episodes, so a lot of you cats have a chance to actually watch it all right now. You know, you got 2 weeks. Make it happen.
Yeah,
Hey, how are you doing, Ivan?
I'm doing good, man. And as you guys saw in my when we saw this battle come up, I knew nothing about these characters. I knew nothing about Mob Psycho because I never heard of that anime. And I never while I never watched One Punch Man, I never really knew the character all that well. So instinctively, I just went with Tatsumaki just because I have some more familiarity with that series. But other than that, I have no clue what these two are capable of. Other than they're both psychic, they're both can manipulate stuff with their minds, as psychics tend to do, but as anime characters, they tend to be a little more overpowered. So this is just
Mm,
going to be a huge doozy for me. Like I really want to learn about these two characters, and that's what we're going to look at today.
absolutely. So, yes, everybody, this is going to be just our opinion, our takes, what we know, our experiences, and there will be some spoilers for both shows because obviously that's the only way we're going to know how we can calculate this scenario. So we'll go ahead and start off. Ivan, you can go ahead and narrate the whole prediction. What do you want to start off with first?
Well, there's a whole thing to start off because both of them are known for their psychic powers. So I guess we'll look at their offensive capabilities as well as their strength. So with Tatsumaki, she's a S class. What you call it? An S class hero in her universe, which is pretty much she's one of the more powerful characters in the One Punch Man universe. So clearly she's no slouch.
Yeah,
And
she's
yeah,
ranked number two out of every superhero in that planet.
yeah, so she's no slouch. So she's definitely gonna put up a fight in this case. So
Mm-hmm.
in terms of offense ability, she was able to take control of a shuriken thrown by Sonic and use it against him, which is not that impressive, but it's something. She threw a car and created huge explosions, picked up and threw huge chunks of destroyed buildings at city-sized spaceships. Throw more rubble at the ship off screen, but that's not impressive. Shoot a shell back at the spaceship, easily destroyed monsters that dwarf buildings, and managed to split big hills. Picked up enormous, roughly city block sized octopus. This scan shows how big it really is, and I'm gonna click on this thing right now because I would like to see how big it is. And yeah, that shit's fucking huge. That literally
Mm-hmm.
takes up half the city. This octopus. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty crazy. She easily squished the giant octopus, and my thing reset it again. So sorry about that. And yeah, she said she squished the octopus, the one that she literally tossed around. She easily stopped 10,000 100 cell. I don't know if I should even say that. This is going to be awkward sounding, so I think I'll just skip that.
Oh,
Uh,
fair enough, fair enough. So what you're just naming off a bunch of her telekinesis, right?
yeah,
We didn't even get to like attack power yet, and you kind of just jumped on already to like attack power stuff. So is this the first topic then, or is her strength like her battle power?
no, this
I
this
just
is
want to make
this
sure.
no, this is strength. This is totally strength. This is
Okay,
like
okay. I just want
this
to make
because
sure because we didn't really announce that. You just kind of just you just went in, man. You were excited. You were just like, "Roar! This bitch can fucking fart and blow up the planet." You know what I mean? Like you just went in, bro, and I think that's tight. I just want to make
yeah.
sure for the audience, it was just like, okay, okay.
Oh no, and I totally understand. No, this is purely strength feats. This is not like her, what her second next product can do. I'm just naming off like stuff she lifted and stuff she's capable of like lifting. So that's what I'm kind of looking at here.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of that, she said she was able to create shock waves and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's kind
Mm-hmm.
of just what I'm seeing here. But is there anything you want to, what Mob's capable of?
Yeah. I know for sure. With your Tatsumaki, I know that she also was able to lift the whole headquarters underground, 1,500 meters underground. Huh. She pulled that bitch out. Like they found out where the enemy was hiding, like the bad guys, and she just lifted their whole headquarters out of the ground up into the air.
Yeah.
So that to me is definitely probably their most impressive feat. Now, as far as our boy Mob goes, he has obviously telekinesis as well, and he deals with a bunch of supernatural stuff. And in their world, there is no superhuman strength people and stuff like that. They're all telekinetic or espers, is for lack of better words. They all are psychics. They all have powers with their mind. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a Spider-Man in their world, right? You don't have a Wolverine. You just have a bunch of Jean Greys flying around in a sense, battling each other. So with that
Damn.
being said, yeah, he psychic barrier. But we're sticking with attack, so I digress. He is able to use chlorokinesis, which is a very unique one. He is I don't want to call him a hippie or a hipster, but he can control nature. So plants, trees could randomly start rooting you from the ground. Plant like if you fight anywhere in grass territory, you'll find yourself getting rooted really quick. Trees will randomly fall on you. He's got that. He's also possesses, as far as a strength, ESP absorption. This allows him to actually just drain whoever he's fighting in a fight, and it keeps fueling him forever. He'll never run out of energy when he fights you because he is always draining you during the fight. Think of it as black magic from Magic the Gathering. That was kind of a drain kind of spell, right? But he doesn't have to tap himself, right, for
Mm-hmm.
power. But in a sense, that to me is hella impressive. And like you said, as far as shockwaves goes, he's shown to do earthquakes and whip up tornadoes that decimate, if not can like send fear in the city and cities away.
God damn.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of nuts. I did not know. Like I said, guys, I know nothing about my Psycho, and I barely know anything about Tatsumaki. So if there's things I'm missing ahead of time, let me know in the comments. Let me know what I'm missing. Educate me, because that's what I would like to know. But yeah, so yeah, that's kind of crazy. And since we're talking about certain abilities, Tatsumaki has an ability called the Psychic Whirlwind, and this is an anti-psychic technique. By making her psychic signal move in a circle around her, Tatsumaki can create a whirlwind capable of harmlessly redirecting or deflecting psychic attacks. She developed this technique during her childhood and has further developed it into an attack. So,
Mm-hmm.
in your opinion, knowing that, can Mob counter that? Or will that just cancel each other out?
How exactly does that move come out, and what is it capable of? I just
It's
want to hear
ca-
that one more time.
I'm sorry about that. Let me look this up again. It's called the Psychic Whirlwind. It says making her psychic signals move in circles around her, Tatsumaki can create a whirlwind capable of harmlessly redirecting or deflecting psychic attacks.
Oh, so it's basically kind of a counter to psychic, which is something she kind of like developed on her own. Well, to be fair, it really depends on. I'm curious. This is where I'm gonna think. I want to see where Death Battle kind of really comes up with it. The mob explosion, perhaps she could deflect back at him. The mob explosion is a kind of a coined term. It's he has the show is called Mob 100, right? You know that.
Yeah.
And the reason it's called that is because he has a percentage subconsciously in his brain. Whenever he reaches 100, the current emotion that got him to 100 ends up becoming his power. Like it's like it fuels it and it makes him go nuts. So for instance, let's say he's at 70%, right? And
Mm-hmm.
me and you were being angry towards him, and somehow it got his 70 counter to up to 100. He would explode with 100%. That's mob 100, and he would be angry. Basically, he's like a mere reflection. Whatever hits him, he fights back. So if someone comes up to him like emo or sad, he can like have mob 100 depressed mode. He can have mob 100 angry mode. He can have mob 100 envy mode or whatever. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
mob explosion. So the
Okay.
ones that have been shown so far, don't give me. I'm sorry if I don't get them all, everybody, but for sure is angry, depression. Um, he had hostility, which to me is kind of like angry, but I digress. He had like compassion, tenacity, and killing intent. So it's one of those. Could she bounce it back at him? Well, I mean, I don't see why she couldn't bounce it back, but it comes down to it's one of those like his barrier like that's a defense question really to kind of go over when the
Mm-hmm.
time comes. But beyond that, he actually goes beyond into the unconsciousness mode. Um, he legitimately uh kind of is I don't want to say he goes what the hell is that word I'm thinking of, like outer body experience,
Yeah.
but he legitimately kind of goes Ultra Instinct, bootleg Jean Grey. I want to say it that way because he can't read minds, right? So I don't want to say he's like Jean Grey verbatim, but he legitimately goes into like psychic Ultra Instinct mode.
Oh wow. And
So
this is and this
yeah.
is and this is based on the emotions that he's reflecting. So like, does these like different emotions, like you said, angry or sad or depressed or whatever? Like, do they have specific abilities that give him certain like abilities or whatever,
Well,
or
there,
it's
there's
just
there's there's
it's
two
just an amp?
forms. There's two forms. There's the Mob 100 form,
Uh
which is
huh.
known as the Mob Explosion, and then there's the Mob question mark. The question mark form actually goes beyond 100. His powers,
Okay.
like I said, legitimately, when he goes unconscious, his brain like takes over and protects him from dying. It'll do whatever it takes to preserve his survival.
Oh
Basically,
wow.
Ultra Instinct psychic or Jean Grey bootleg mode is what I kind of call it, because like the brain it'll do whatever it takes to survive, and that to me is super. That's kind of more of a defense again,
Oh.
but it's
Oh.
also an attack as well because it'll pull all the stops. It goes way beyond 100, and I know a lot of people speculate like, oh, it's not that much stronger than 100. The
Mm-hmm.
problem is there's question marks, so it's I don't want to give it a fallacy, like a no limit fallacy argument either. I just really want to push the idea though that it's ultra instinct though. So
Okay.
at least that's how it's perceived, and that's how it's been demonstrated when I like looked it up. Like I said, everybody, I didn't watch all 25 episodes yet, but I just want to share my take on it.
I mean, just that alone, that sounds like a potential game changer because if it's come to the point where like if he's that powerful, like it kind of depends on whether whatchamacallit, Tatsumaki's whirlwind is able to deflect that back. If it's too powerful, then he'll probably just like go right through that. So I
Yeah.
honestly I have no clue how that's gonna turn out, but
The strongest thing that she's ever countered that I remember was when those big ass shells came out of that mother spaceship that wanted to destroy the whole city A. They came out and she immediately stopped them and turned them around and shot them back up in the ship.
yeah.
So they're gonna have to calculate that. I don't know the math. Shout out to my boy Jaru. He's a huge analysis and prediction cat that we and him kind of went back and forth on Twitter. And I was playing devil's advocate because I want to get some real, what I mean? I want to like challenge him, and I hope he appreciates that. And
Hmm.
with that being said, he calculates that those shells are insanely way more powerful than people can imagine. I don't. The shells because they can wipe out a large chunk of land. I
Hmm.
again, I feel like just because a shell can wipe out a chunk of land doesn't mean that they're hard to stop, if that makes sense. For instance,
Yeah.
a nuclear bomb weighs 2,000 pounds. So, a guy that set the world record for bench pressing can bench half of that. So if you take three of the strongest men in the world, they could pick up a nuke. That doesn't mean they're city block level. Like or city or nuclear level.
Yeah.
Like it's that argument, and that's kind of like I really want to see where they're gonna come in with that, and that's why like it's an agree to disagree. Like I love talking to him. I love getting So I digress. Anyways,
Hmm.
but that's her strongest feat, and
Okay.
he believes that her attack power is that power because she took the nukes and turned around and threw them back at their shells, I should say, and threw them
Yeah.
back at the ship. I don't see that as her power. I see that as a counterattack. That was my argument to him.
Yeah.
I want to see like what she can do.
Yeah.
And to me, she's very counter attacking, and I give her credit. And she can lift, like I said, the whole base. That was the strongest lift feat. Okay, great. Once again, what can she do to attack though? She can lift shit. She can do stuff. Like, what's her greatest like attack feat? Is my question. That's my question. I'm not being rude. I'm just legitimately I want to know.
No, I completely agree with you, and just stuff that I'm looking at right now, it doesn't really say, if she has any like psychic, psychic like beams or
Exactly.
telekinetic, energy balls or whatever. But as far as I can, it's mostly just like picking up an object and tossing it back. Like I'm sure
Mhm.
she does have that kind of ability where she can like create like a psychic knife or a psychic blast in a certain way and kind of throw it at her opponent. I'm sure she's capable of that. But from what I'm seeing here, she's not. It's not really been shown. But my question to you is like, is there any limits to a mob 100 or whatever? If there's shown to be any limits, like does it last a certain amount of time, or
No,
it's indefinite?
his energy seems to be infinite with his fight because, well, okay, let me rephrase that.
Mm-hmm.
He as he's fighting, he's draining his opponent. So when his opponent gets drained, yeah, when he runs out of that, he can get drained too. But that opponent would also be drained as well. And then if
Mm-hmm.
he ends up going unconscious, like I said, then his body just takes over and goes ultra instinct. So like I don't- is unless you're talking about limits of power output, that's where the question mark comes into. Yeah, he can reach mob one. He can reach that 100 where he kind of like explodes and does some crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the question mark symbolizes that it can go beyond 100%. Now, as far as feats going to show beyond it's really a fallacy argument. I don't want to get into that because no one likes fallacy
Mm-hmm.
debates, like, and I understand that and I respect that. I just feel that it's one of those things that I know for sure he goes way beyond 100 because he's going at Ultra Instinct. Ultra Instinct to me is a huge buff in my book, regardless of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I agree with that. I agree with that. But in terms of feats, as I'm looking at more information, it says right here, Tatsumaki can lift up the entire city Z with ease.
mm-hmm.
So like
Yeah.
if it's compared to like Tokyo or whatever, that's a lot of power
Well,
she's doing. But
in fact, the what another thing is no, this is speculation, and this is where Death Battle
hmm
really has to decide. This has never been stated, but it's assumed that these cities that are marked, like Z City, A City, Elemental
hmm
P City, these cities are the size of countries, not continents.
oh wow.
So they're not like New York, for instance, is only 35 miles. To put that in perspective,
hmm
some people arguably say that these cities are the size of thousands of miles. I don't. I'm on the fence on it. I want to hear what they say. The creator of the show has never clarified this. They showed a map. The map looks pretty big, right?
hmm
And many would argue. And remember when Saitama jumped from the moon back to the planet, he could actually see the whole continent. So the continent, viewed from space, are like it looked, it wasn't the same shape. I think that's right or fail, right?
hmm
Because it's like, okay, what my argument was is like, well, it doesn't look like the map that was shown originally, but he jumped
Yeah.
right back to that continent. So it's pretty fair to say he jumped back to A City during that fight. And with that being said, if he can see it from the moon that far away, that almost would be like the cities are like probably the size of Russia. Like the
That's
whole Russia, like broken up in chunks.
that's
You know,
colossal.
yeah. So her being able to lift up that would almost be like almost her being able to lift up the United States of America. I'm guessing. Okay, everybody. If somebody can
Yeah.
correct, I'm impulsively saying it, but based off of like the top of my head when I saw the maps and everything right now, and I'm put on the spot, it almost appears as if she could. If this is all true, okay, we got to see what the creator says, what Death Battle says.
Yeah.
If that's the case, her ass could lift up the size of like Australia or North America, like
Yeah.
all 50 states or
But when it
48
comes to like
states.
yeah. But another thing we need to consider is because this is a battle between two psychics,
Mm.
physical strength may not be that big of a factor, in my opinion.
Well, that's
That's
not
just
physical strength. That's mind. She lifted up with her mind, dude.
okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. But it's still like, yeah, you're right. Let me shut up. But yeah,
I'm
you're
not trying
right
to be
though.
mean. I'm sorry, bro.
No, you're good. You're good. I kind of just went completely. But yeah. So in terms of that, like, who do you think in terms of like how in terms of their psychic strength, who do you think has it?
Uh, if, if what some of these people are saying, like Ja Rule and other cats, about the whole lifting of country, they never made the comparison to North America, but based on the feedback I got from him, and the dude knows, he's a very smart cat,
Mm-hmm.
um, lifting North America versus the strongest thing I've seen my boy do was he took a bunch of buildings and rolled them into a ball and compressed them and fucking threw them. Like that would be that would be peanuts compared to her lifting America. However, I still argue the throwing part. I still argue the compression. I've never once seen her compress anything. And I know a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people like to argue with me and say like, "Oh, well, da 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 da." But to me, it's like, okay, the next question I'll ask you, I'm gonna ask you again, Ivan, is like, if a baseball player throws a ball 90 miles per hour, right?
Yeah.
But okay, great. Like that's to be a pro pitcher, you have to throw 90 miles per hour minimally. They'll let you in if
Mm-hmm.
you do like 89. But after that, like how many pro ball players have you seen pitchers crush a baseball with their bare hands? None.
None.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what he's done. He's crushed the baseball with his mind. I'm not going to say bare hands, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
like, when you put that in a strength factor, I feel like compression is way more impressive than throwing something. I'm sorry.
And I,
Maybe I'm wrong. And I
but
know Ja Rule, I have to disagree with Ja Rule on that. And I love the cat. I think he's a cool dude. But I just like he thinks that throwing something is way more impressive than crushing something. And I that's where I'm lost because
crushing,
I've
but
never seen anyone crush a baseball, but I've seen many ball players throw a baseball at 90 miles per hour.
no,
So like
no, I completely agree with that point. And honestly, like you're right. Like being able to crush something or compress something, that work. I feel like that's going to require a lot more strength because like a baseball is it's a pretty solid, object.
yeah.
Picking up a throw is one thing because it's a light object, but it's a lot, construction wise or whatever. It's
Mhm.
tougher than it is, heavy. So I
Yeah.
think that could matter for something. And if you remember that death battle, which is uh Ghost Rider and Lobo, it would say that freaking Lobo was able to compress an entire city, and
Exactly.
he was able to
It,
compress it, and it was like like several trillions of joules or
yes.
some bullshit like
Yes,
that.
exactly my point. And I think that that right there is going to be the thing because he took skyscrapers. We're talking like Sears Tower skyscrapers, and that's the beams. You gotta remember, every floor has desks, of work,
Yeah,
elevators. There's an elevator in there. There's you know what I mean. There's desks. Desks on average weigh about 98 100 pounds.
yeah,
Every floor would have what, like eight or like eight, they have like 50 desks, you know what I mean? Like if
yeah,
you really like, and he just took it and he just formed a semi-perfect circle, and it almost looked compressed. It had to be compressed to make a perfect circle. You have to compress it. That's it. To be that close to a circle, if you couldn't compress it, it wouldn't look like a circle. It would look like a funky ass. It wouldn't even be a shape. It would just be like, you know
it'd be
what I
like
mean. It would just be Nerf.
yeah, it'd just be like a Katamari Damashi type of ball. It wouldn't. It's no
Yes,
symmetry, no nothing. So I kind of
exactly.
agree with that. Yeah,
So that's why like I'm really curious to see if Death Battle shows that and explains it. I'm not gonna be mad. I like that Ja Rule, he feels that okay, even if he threw the ball, he thinks throwing the ball is more impressive than compressing the ball. I have to disagree. I think when it comes to their mind, I'm like, well, they can do any of it because it's their mind. So it's a hard argument to begin with. But I think the
yeah,
compressing of it is way more impressive than throwing it because of like I said before.
yeah. That's true. You're absolutely right.
It is what it is. I could be right. I could be wrong. It's just that's how I see it. I'm curious to see what Death Battle. So with that being said, the compressing feat to me would be I don't know if that's still enough to compete though with her lifting the whole planet. But I have also never seen
Planet?
her or planet.
Planet?
The
You
whole
mean
North
Tatsu-
America, my bad.